Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Universe Expanding Books and Toys Halloween Edition. I even got my little buddy right here, my costume ready to go. Hope everyone's having a nice Halloween, or about to in a couple days. I decided to do a video specifically about creepy, scary Star Wars things. I'm a big fan of anything creepy and scary. Of course, obviously, I'm a big fan of Star Wars. So whenever the two Venn diagram together, I'm super happy. And they've released a good number of stuff over the years. Unfortunately, not a lot of merchandise as far as toys goes, but comics and books they've had covered for quite some time. The very first time I think I remember seeing a horror-specific Star Wars anything was this series. Star Wars Galaxy of Fear. You can see it's got that fun hologram on the front, which makes me think of National Geographic's. But this was a children's, like not children's, but like youth, 4th grade to 7th grade reader books, very short, fun little books. I'll tell you what, if anybody who likes Star Wars books is like, I'm not going to read that, that's a kid's book, don't do that. They're really good. They might be not the vocabulary or that you're used to, or in a more adult book. That doesn't mean the adventures aren't really good. I've got about 7 of them. There's 12 total. The problem is when you get later onto the series, they get very pricey and hard to get. But I do have a good chunk of them. Some of them had that hologram cover. There's a good Hut eating a slug there. Yep. But they also had some like regular covers as well. And there's Darth Vader. They sort of ran the gambit of. There's a Rancor. Various other fun monsters. This is a good series because it was the popularity of Goosebumps that created these. And that's a good hook to get new Star Wars fans. If you're a kid and you're a Goosebumps fan, you're like, oh, let's try this science fiction one. Even if you've never seen Star Wars, it's a good way to get it in. Get to become a fan. So this is a great series. But, of course, there's only so much you can do with kids series as far as getting the horror aspect of things. A few years later, they decided to do something a little bit more for the adults. And that is 2 books. Death Troopers. This is, of course, before Rogue One gave us Death Troopers. This is a series about a zombie outbreak on a prison ship. On the back of the cover has a cool picture of a grotesque scene. Of course, you can see the blood and the cracked bit of the helmet. It is definitely not for kids. It's a really good novel as far as just being fun. It doesn't add anything to the saga overall. Doesn't really change anything as far as the old canon goes. But it's just fun, pulpy. If you like horror, if you like zombies, you'll like it. If that's not your thing and you're in for deeper Star Wars stories, you're probably not going to enjoy that. Could be wrong. Always worth a shot. They followed that up with a sequel, a more prequel, but it came afterwards, Red Harvest. You can see that grotesque Sith there. This is about the zombie outbreak on a Sith academy in the Old Republic. So the first one takes place during the Empire. This one takes place well before the movies. I want to say 4,000 years, 3,000 years before the movies. It's in that Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic, not far back as Dawn of the Jedi, but in that area. Zombies are terrifying. Zombie stormtroopers and aliens in the first book, terrifying. Zombie Sith apprentices, zombies that you can use the Force, extremely terrifying. Same thing as the first one, doesn't add anything. Same author, Joel Schreiber. And doesn't add anything to the saga, but it's fun, undead action. If you like audiobooks, I really like this one. It's, what is his name? Jonathan Hurt? The guy who was, I always remember him as Lionel Luthor on Smallville. He was also Mr. Clamp in Gremlins 2, but he's a great actor, and he has a certain creepiness to it that he lends to that audiobook, so very good version of that. In new canon, They released a couple of books of basically like fables, legends. They did one for Life Day. But the middle one was Star Wars Dark Legends, which isn't necessarily specifically horror, but you can see a werewolf right there. It has horror aspects to it. These are great books. And you see they tie into things like, Galaxy's Edge, and sort of ties everything together. So it's a little bit of horror and scary stories from all over. Excuse me. On comic books in new canon, there are two companies that make comic books for Star Wars, Marvel and IDW. Marvel is more like exactly what you expect from Marvel. The heroes always win. It's more tightly connected to the movies, things like that. IDW is a company that's more family oriented. They do stuff like Transformers and My Little Pony. They're not necessarily specifically for adults, but just like with the junior novels, that doesn't mean they're not good or not exciting. For the realm of horror, they have just finished up their 4th year miniseries for Vader's Castle. This is a great series. You can see it's got that nice, horror cover with the characters from Rebels. This goes everywhere. Rebels, Old Republic, the prequels, original trilogy. There's Han and Chewie. One of the things I liked about this first one is they would have the shape of Vader's helmet, and then whatever's involved sort of look like the owl's wearing Vader's helmet a little bit, even though it's just the negative space of a creepy scene. They even went to Endor, and this issue is one of my favorites because this issue recanonizes the Gorax as well as the Dulocs. The Dulocs are in here. If you know me, I love Ewoks, but I really love Dulocs. That's a particularly good issue. And then the 5th one, this is about 4 years ago. There's Vader's Castle in all its glory. The following year, they did a series as well. There's Darth Maul. These were more like, each one was based on a horror movie, so that one, I can't remember what that one was, but the one about Tarkin was sort of Frankenstein's monster. There's an Asajj Ventress one that's Little Shop of Horrors with Sarlacc. One about the Biomar monk and Brain in the Jar with Jabba the Hutt. And then, of course, they finished that one off as well. The 3rd year was really in the middle of COVID, and they couldn't do the whole mini-series. So they just did one issue, which is better than nothing, so I'm happy to have it. This year, they did another 5-issue series, and I just neglected to bring them back here with me to show you. I don't want to start a whole new video over again, so you can look them up. They're still in comic book stores, I'm sure. But it was equally good. Back to the 4 issues. And a lot of it revolves around the Graf family. If you're reading High Republic, you know this family. This family has been talked about, as well as the Santekas and the Staroses, who are famous Star Wars families beyond Skywalkers. But the Graf family originally came from a series of kids' junior novels called Adventures in Wild Space, which is a little bit of a horror element to it. It's like the Star Wars version of Series of Unfortunate Events. Well, those characters from those books have grown up, and they sort of become a feature in these Vader's Castle's books, as well as the regular Star Wars Adventures line. A lot of hardcore fans just don't know them because they're attached to more family, more kid stuff. Again, for the 3rd time, don't neglect those. They're just as good. You're not going to get as much violence. You're not going to get as much, adult things. These are like sort of PG, and everything else is sort of PG-13. Not a lot of stuff that's sort of rated R. These guys are definitely rated R. And I don't want to give any secrets about this one, but this has, in the middle of it, a character that you know very well show up, and I don't want to give it away, but it's a nice little surprise. Now, like I said, they didn't make any merchandise for any of this stuff. Disney World and Disneyland have, every year, little astromechs that are Halloween, but they're not from a story, so I don't collect those. I know that they've done like statues of like the Death Troopers and stuff like that, but that's not what I collect, so I just don't have them. However, I decided to pick out a few of my more favorite kind of horror-esque figures, just to show you a couple things. One of them is one of my absolute favorites. C-3PO and Salacious Crumb. Now, if you notice, Salacious Crumb's right up on his head, ripping his eye out. You can see that eye is poking right out. Pretty horrific. And he's also covered in some Jabba slime, I assume. Very horrific, but I love Salacious Crumb, and like I said, a big fan of creepy, scary things. So him dismembering C-3PO's eye is just delightful to me, for whatever reason. Following that, excuse me, I decided to pick out Nama Nor. Nama Nor is a Yuuzhan Vong from the books. This is no longer canon, but there are 19 books about a 3-year-long war about invaders from outside the galaxy who the Force doesn't work on them. Lightsabers don't work on them. All of their stuff, their armors, their staffs, everything is living. In fact, they find technology abhorrent and will not mess with it and are afraid to even fight it, which is how they ultimately won the war. Lando created Yuuzhan Vong hunter droids, which they haven't made a figure out of that, but in a build a droid thing to take care of them. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about how horrifying they are. If you look at his face, you can see they get all these tattoos, but all that stuff that's missing from his face, that's not how the species looks. They mutilate their face in honor to, I think they have 7 gods, which is very similar to Game of Thrones, that they try to appease, and they're all very dark gods. Yuuzhan Vongs were terrifying. How did the Jedi even fight them? The Force doesn't work on them. Their ships are all living. They're nothing like anything that the Jedi or the galaxy had ever seen. And if you followed Star Wars Legacy, which takes place 100 years beyond that, you can see the impact that Yuuzhan Vong war had on the entire galaxy. Very good stuff. Long series, like I said, 19 books, but totally worth it. Don't let anyone tell you it's a ripoff of Star Trek. It is I'm a Star Trek fan. It is about the least Star Trek thing I've ever read. I got one more for you, and this is one of my favorites, Comic Pack. This is one of those special last 2 that came in a box. Darth Maul. Now, is he not like the most horror, monster of all Star Wars everything? Certainly he is. But this one is extra monstrous because it has that Darth Maul with the robot legs. This was the first time you ever saw that. When this came out, Star Wars Visions, they were meant to be non-canon extra stories. And he tracks Obi-Wan down to Tatooine. The story was so good and so well loved, not only to get a figure, but they eventually brought Darth Maul back in the Clone Wars with those same robot legs after the spider legs. And he did eventually track Obi-Wan down to Tatooine in Rebels. So I point that out because I really like it when they take something from old canon and go, this really has a place, this really needs to be in the new canon, and they find a way to work it in. And that is a great example of that. I love Maul and his robot legs, and honestly, I think I love Maul beyond Phantom Menace much more than the actual character in Phantom Menace, who is really cool. That's how it is. He's got a couple good books, too. A couple good comic book series as well, worth checking out. Again, I'm so excited. I've never been able to say I've had my own Halloween special, and now I can say that I have. Didn't give you a lot of time to read these books before Halloween, but it is over the weekend Halloween, so if you're looking for a little bit of time, digital copies is almost always the way to go, as far as reading things if you want to get it quick and relatively cheap. I'm sure these things are available that way. If you have a few hours in your Halloween weekend, check one of these out. They're really fun. They're a little scary, and just scratches all those itches that I get this time of year. Again, my name is John Edward Lee. This has been a universe-expanding Books and Toys. Thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share. If you're watching this on Instagram, please look at my bio, link to the YouTube, and give me a quick subscribe, like, or share. Hey, thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great Halloween. The Force will be with you, always.